Hey everyone, it's Jamie here from the LineZero Team, and we thought today we'd speak about three topics or three questions that have been popping up amongst our audience, amongst our customers. They're just making their way into our mind share. And those questions are, what does the metaverse mean for business? What are the benefits of the metaverse? And how can we actually use the metaverse in our business? So let's start with the top, straightforward one. And these definitions, I think, continue to evolve as the technology evolves, as more things come out, use cases get identified. But the metaverse is, and why it's relevant to business, is it's basically a large digital online world with kind of rich interactions. So it's one that you can access via technologies like augmented reality, i.e. with lenses that still allow you to view the real world, but have digital inputs added on top of it. Virtual reality, which is basically a fully enclosed viewing experience where you're fully immersed into the experience there. And then there's mixed reality that kind of is a blending of those two. You can also have tech that blends into it or sort of mixes with artificial intelligence. When you get the convergence of both AI as well as augmented reality, you get to start to see some really neat things happening. And I'll be talking about that in a second when it comes to some of the use cases. Well, basically in the metaverse, businesses can find new ways to connect. They can work there. There's other things that can happen. And people are basically trying to figure out, what does this mean? So if I'm working in the metaverse, one of the common uses comes up where I can have a digital screen or multiple screens, and there's no limit to how large I make it, right? Because I have glasses, I put them on, have the screen be 10 feet tall, and I can have many different monitors. So that's a very easy productivity case. But also when we're in the metaverse, what does that mean for things like privacy? Like, how do I want to show up? Do I want my camera or the metaverse to represent me as I am versus how I'd like to be? So if I haven't combed my hair today, or if I haven't shaved, should I have an avatar show up as my most ideal me or the way I want to be represented? And so I think when we talk about what does the metaverse mean for business, I think there's the easy, early North Stars that we can point to around creating really rich experiences that allow us to interact with both our customers as well as our employees. And then there's still some stuff that we're figuring out. Like I just mentioned, what's the best way to show up in the metaverse? Should it be yourself? Should it be your avatar? Should it just not be you? Should you just be able to experience other things, but not actually have an embodiment of yourself in that reality? We're still learning. So that kind of pivots us to what are the benefits of the metaverse, right? And I think, again, we're still learning. This is still very early. The use cases are continuing to develop, but there's a myriad of ways in which it can benefit a business. And I think that will depend on the type of business that you're in. I'll give you a few examples. We have a number of companies that do lots of learning and development. So training, education, those types of use cases. And those are for things like that are complicated, but are expensive to redo. Like, how do you train a mechanic to fix an airplane engine, right? You get it wrong, it's very expensive. But if you can create a digital twin or basically like a representation of an engine in virtual reality, I can run the same training simulations over and over again without any worry of damaging it. I can do it from home. I don't actually need to be in like a hangar with a big physical engine in place. And so it allows me to do things that I just wouldn't be able to do otherwise. There are, of course, some things that we need to figure out, right? For example, in VR, sure, trying to fix an engine, the engine is technically weightless, right? And so how do we start to bring in some of those types of physical cues into those types of training activities? And I think we're still working it out, but we've had a ton of success in learning and development for those types of use cases. There are other learning and development and education use cases around things like inclusivity or gender awareness or racism. And so it's one thing to go through a training session, for example, into here's how we can speak, or here's some things that we need to be aware of to make sure that we're sensitive to other people and that we're being as respectful as possible, right? But if we're able to actually live through some simulations of saying, oh, if I speak this way to someone like this, or if I act this way to someone like this, is actually how it would make me feel. This is how that you're showing up. And so when you feel it versus being told it, read it, it's very different, and it tends to imprint in a very different way than if you just read it or are told it. So that reinforcement and that experiential learning is something that you just can't replace. And that's a use case that is actually very mature inside of the metaverse space, and I think helps drive a lot of value for businesses. So how do we use the metaverse for business? I think, again, this will depend on both the type of industry that you're in, the function inside of your business, and whether there's applicability or mature use cases for us to tie into. One really good example, and this is going to talk about the convergence of AI and mixed reality, is for customer success or customer experiences. So let's say, for example, we have a teller, or we have someone that works in retail, or we have someone that works in the call center, and we want to do training over what's the best way to answer a call. What would that be like if we could actually, rather than training with live customers, we're able to have that person put on a headset, have digital customers come up. The language and questions those customers are asking are driven by AI, right? So it's not necessarily following a rote script, but it's responding to how we respond in a way that we think is most representative of the customer. And that AI could be tweaked into different types of customers. So I want to have a happy customer. I want to have an angry customer. I want to have a customer whose order was messed up. And how we respond to those types of scenarios, we could experience that and go through that in mixed reality in a way that's very immersive. And then we could actually even have that AI come back and talk to us and say, hey, here's what you did good. Here's some suggestions for things that maybe you could do better next time. And that type of immersive training or immersive feedback, you basically can't get that any other way. There's really high value there. It also supports product development. And product development can be typically things like physical items that you're making, whether that's furniture, widgets, whatever the case may be. If you're able to model something, make it really big, walk around it in 360 degrees, get inside of it, look at how all the pieces work, that's invaluable, right? Think about the prototyping, the time to prototyping a device, or if we want to make specific changes. If we were talking about something that was built from metal, for example, we'd have to go and fabricate a new piece, build the whole thing all over again. And that feedback loop from prototyping can be quite long, right? But in mixed reality, we're able to do that almost in real time, which again is a very powerful use case. And I think there's a lot of applicability for businesses that do that. We also talk about remote work, right? So remote work, culture, communication. I think these is an area where it's still in its infancy, right? We're still figuring out how this is going to apply. But one of the challenges that we have is we're all working remote or hybrid to some degree. And how do we balance, for example, those people that may be in the office with those people that are home? And how do we create a consistent experience so all of those people feel the same or experience the meeting in a way that's equivalent, if you will? Mixed reality is one of the ways that we feel that we can actually have, like, what if John or Sally, who are sitting at home, were in the room with us and actually sitting in a chair, and that as they talked to our right, we could move our head to the right, and spatially, that's where they would appear in the meeting, even though they were at home. A lot of really cool things there. There's even use cases around healthcare. We've seen some of our customers that both do training for, let's call it, the complicated heart surgery, anything that's working on internal or inside your body, so internal organs, etc. Again, training all that stuff can be quite difficult, quite expensive, but if we're able to do that in virtual reality, we're able to get in repetitions that would be basically impractical to do in the real world. So I think that's quite clear. So that's just a few. Again, when we look at mixed reality, it is very early from a technology perspective. We're quite early in the game in terms of not just how it's going to be used, but how the technology has been evolved and how other technologies are going to influence it, right? What's miniaturization going to do when you can experience true VR or AR by just putting on sunglasses? What's it going to mean when we're able to add true artificial intelligence into that and have the screen or the system give us things in a way that's contextually appropriate or responds to situations and give us cues for how to handle different situations better. Pretty incredible. So I think we're still early. And I think that being said, businesses should look at it and say, how do I explore this, right? How do I understand what the applicability of this is to my business? Or how do I understand whether that this can be disruptive to my business and I'm going to be at a competitive disadvantage if I don't leverage this? Or B, is there ways to inversely create advantage by leveraging this within my organization? So our recommendation is that, we should begin exploring that, whether that you're large enough where you have a dedicated innovation team, right? This is something that we typically see with larger organizations, or smaller ones where just an individual is responsible for innovation, letting them get their hands dirty, so to speak, and play with the technology and understand how that could apply to your business is important. We at LineZero, we can help with that. We can help with that in two primary ways. So one, we help all the time from an envisioning perspective. So if we're still trying to figure out what does this mean to my business? Are there ways that we can add additional value? We have a process where we can work with you and understand and envision, okay, here's tangible values. Here's based on the maturity of the use cases, based on where your business sits. Here's where we think that we should make some investment because it's going to be relevant to our org. Conversely, if we're a little bit further along on our virtual reality journey and we just need a little bit of a helping hand to get moving, we can also help from a training perspective. And whether that's train administrators from a technical perspective, help train end users such that when they get the devices or they immerse themselves into experiences, it's as frictionless as possible. Either of those instances, we'd be happy to help. So feel free to reach out to us at engage@linezero.com and let's have a conversation.